absolutely delighted to have Koji Miura with us this morning or this evening. And so I think Koji and I have known each other for about 20 years now. That's a long time. When we were both working, I guess, sort of getting our respective racewalk research going in physiology and some biomechanics in my case, and very much biomechanics research in race walking for Koji. And as you can see, he's now working, has a couple of different roles with Japan Athletics. So what we'll do this morning, I'll let Koji introduce himself and tell us a little bit about his roles. He's got some slides to talk us through. And if you have some questions, if we use the chat function on Zoom, and then we'll pick up and have a look at some questions and see if we can answer some of those. Once the presentation section is finished. And we've got Koji back with us next week to talk about coaching in Japan. So we'll look forward to that also. Right. Enough from me. Okay, so Koji, over to you. Thanks very much.
Introduce myself. Okay. Hello everyone. I'm Koji Hoga-Miura, and I changed my name Miura now with my marriage 10 years ago. So my paper you can find Koji Hoga or Koji Hoga-Miura. Now I'm working as a manager of scientific research committee of Japan Athletics. That's for the responsibility. That responsibility is for the every event of athletics. So I'm manager, chairman, and manager, and as a member. And for the coaching, I'm now working as a coordinator of Japan national race walking team. The head coach is Mr. Imamura, and me, coordinator. And I help many coaches and athletes. And I work as a volunteer coach for one university team as a race walker. So I'm now I have two position, manager of the science and coordinator of coaching. So I work as a two kind of work for these 20 years. And also my job, professional job, is the government office of the sports science. But in 3 years ago, I worked as an associate professor of the university, but now changed for consultant right to the science and coaching for race walking. That's my introduction. Okay. Okay, let's start talking about the research in race walking technique. Today I talk 5 topics. Sorry, 5 topics. Okay. First, the history of research on race walking, physiology, and other. And the next, second, the race walking technique, the history about ground reaction force and electromyography and the moment of the joint torque. And the third, the judgment of race walking. The start is 1919. You can see the paper of the IAAF in the Journal of IAAF, New Studies in Athletics. And other research of Japanese Research Committee about race walking judgment. And first, about my dissertation in 2007, and the findings derived from my PhD study. And the last, shortly about the research in the future about race walking. The first, the oldest paper of race walking is presented in 1968, 15 years ago. That's a physiology, oxygen uptake of less walking. The last one, the oldest one I can found in the journals. That comes from England, but that's the data on collected in France. Forum. Maybe I never go to the forum, but maybe some of the audience go to the forum for the altitude training. The process of the preparation for the Mexico Olympic Games in Mexico, 1968. They search about the oxygen uptake on the treadmill in the altitude of 1,800 meters height. The main result is that oxygen uptake and maximally about 60, both in less walking and running. So maybe that's the influence of the altitude, but that's the first paper of oxygen uptake in less walking. So that's the start of less walking research, maybe I think. The next is 1983, and V.O2 max, the maximal oxygen intake, and the relationship between the rest pace and with oxygen intake of 10 km per hour, a typical speed of training, and the speed oxygen uptake at lactate threshold and velocity at lactate threshold. There's no significant relationship between the maximal oxygen uptake and rate pace, but other parameters have a significant relationship. So the authors conclude the performance of 20K is related to the economy, that's an economy, and the lactate threshold, and the velocity and the lactate threshold. So now I'm coaching on the 20K walkers. So that result is now very important after 40 years. Okay. The next is 1986. This journal is the researcher is from United States, but is Canadian Journal of Applied Sports Science. 35 years ago, they conclude that the economy is very high, the mostly high in the free chosen stride lanes. So that's the start of the economy relationship of economy and technique. Maybe that's the start of the technique search of about. Okay. Maybe you can find other papers about physiology, but these start of physiology on the three main topics of less walking. The start is simply the oxygen uptake. The next is about the lactate threshold, and other is anaerobic threshold. And the third, the relationship between the physiology and the technique. Okay, that's the start of the less walking technique. The next, I introduce the two papers of the Italian school, the giants of the efficiency of locomotion of Italy, from Italy, Cavagna, Malgaria, Di Plampero, and others. So the start of about less walking is 1918. That's a journal of physiology. Okay. Cavagna and other of these schools researched about the mechanical energy of running and normal walking before this paper. The start is 1960s, but about race walking, the start is 1918. So they measured the acceleration and the ground reaction force with the force platform of strain gauge. So the subject includes the world champion, Olympic champion, Mauricio da Milano in this paper. They analyze the mechanical efficiency with mechanical work of center of gravity that's measured with strain gauge. This parameter is numerator is mechanical work of whole body, and the denominator is energy expenditure. So the efficiency is very same in normal walking and race walking in the speed of 2 km per hour and 4 km per hour and 6 km per hour. The same between the normal walking and race walking. But over the 4 km per hour, the efficiency of normal walking reduced, but efficiency of race walking increased. And after 8 km per hour, the efficiency is not increased, almost the same as this point. But that's the start of the research of efficiency. The next second paper of the Italian school is from the proceedings of the International Society of Biomechanics held in 1983. This model, this parameter is same as the paper of Cavagna, but the model of mechanical work of race walking is more complicated. This is only the model of simply the center of gravity of the race walker. But this model, that's the length segment of model of the whole body, so more complicated. But the efficiency of the race walking is lower than running in the speed, that's meter per second. But the efficiency of normal walking, race walking is almost same in this speed. But maybe I think the efficiency of ambulation, the normal walking is reduced here. But the second memorial paper of the efficiency of the race walking. Next is about the typical parameter of biomechanics on race walking. The start of ground reaction forces is about the paper of Dr. Payne, the Birmingham, the 1978. That's from the proceedings of ISB, International Society of Biomechanics. That's the most old paper I can find from the main papers of race walking, but they presented the ground reaction force of normal walking, running, and race walking. I present the most important figure about the ground reaction force of race walking. That is the vertical, that is the sagittal, that's the lateral. I don't present that of normal walking and running. So the race walking, the vertical reaction force is almost 2 times of body weight. In normal walking, almost the same as body weight, but in race walking, this is twice, 2 times of the body weight. In running, is 3 or 5 times of body weight. That's the state of ground reaction force. The next is the state of electromyography, the oldest one of our electromyography of less walking. This paper is American Journal of Sports Medicine. I can find, and you can find many papers from the United States in 1918. Maybe that's the project for the Olympic Games in Los Angeles in 1984. You can find many papers. Maybe researchers received many grants for the research for less walking. The authors present the electromyography typical of that is lower extremity and upper extremity. The normal walking, fast walking, in Japanese, haya aruki, and less walking, and fast walking and less walking. That's very important. So before this paper, no paper and no materials about the electromyography of less walking. The subject is two of national less walker of the United States. The next is the ground reaction force and torque and powers in 1985. That's from the International Journal of Applied Biomechanics, the Journal of International Society of Biomechanics. That is the first one of the muscle power of less walking. That is the power of ankle, recovery phase and support phase, recovery phase and support phase, and the recovery phase and support phase. That's the start of the torque and the powers. So before this paper, no one can know about the muscle moment and the powers in less walking. That's very important. The data was collected with the fourth platform, maybe that strain gauge, and two-dimensional cinematography. So I read this paper many times in my PhD study about 20 years ago. Next one is mostly the findings is following the previous paper, but that's important. The important point is comparison of running and less walking and normal walking. This paper is from Medicine and Science in Sports and Exercise. Subject is national level of United States. They researched, analyzed about the ground reaction force and the moment ground reaction force, that's vertical and sagittal and lateral, and the muscle moment of the hip, that's adduction and abduction, and extension and flexion, and knee flexion and extension, and ankle plantar flexion and dorsal flexion. That is maybe the second one of ground reaction force and muscle moment, but that's also very important paper for as a monument of less walking study. Okay, that's monumental researches about less walking study.